Okay, so I'm going to show you how an English style, or some people call this throwing method of knitting, where we start from the front and we enter into the first stitch from the left to the right, and we throw the yarn around the back and come right forward like this, and then off the needle. And the way I hold my yarn is I grab it with my pinky, pull it back so that my knuckle is right next to the yarn, throw the yarn, and come through the stitch. So I'm not actually grabbing the yarn, I'm actually just lifting it with my finger around the stitch. And then when I purl, I come forward and I come from the back and into the front of the stitch and around the front needle, and then I pull the stitch away from me. And that one is purling in the English style, or throwing method. Okay, so that's some purls, and then some, excuse me, and then knitting. Okay, so we'll just knit these last few stitches, and then you can compare this to the way Kelie knits, and she does the combo continental knitting. Alright, that's it. Oh, okay. So I'm going to show you continental method now, and what I do also is I wrap my pinky around the yarn with my knuckle close to the work, and I just insert my finger between the yarn and the stitches on my needle. I insert my front needle, my right hand needle, into the front of the stitch, and the yarn goes around, and that comes through. The first stitch needs a little bit of help because there's nothing on the other side. Now the yarn's coming from here. So it's a picking method because you're just picking that yarn through the loop, and that's what continental knitters sometimes call this, is picking. Now I'm going to purl some stitches so the yarn comes to the front, and my needle goes into the front right here, and the yarn's going between the two needles, and then I just flick it around so then it goes into the stitch. So I just have to make sure that my yarn's here rather than here, and Kelie will show you her method, which is slightly different. So we go right in here, and then I'm going to switch to knitting, so that just easily pulls the yarn over and then up. And sorry for if this is a little jerky, but there we go. And like that. And our last stitch, and there we are. So I have some knits, purls, and knits. Okay?
I'm going to show you how I knit, which is called a combination method, or the Eastern uncrossed. And you start with the yarn in your left hand, and you put your needle in the front of the stitch, and you wrap it around and you pull it through. So that's no different than somebody else who knits with their yarn in the left hand, continental style. The difference comes when you're purling. The yarn comes to the front, just like any other purl. Stick your needle through, but instead of wrapping it around, a traditional like that, you just flick it through like this. Then the yarn's on the outside of the needle, and you just flick it through. Now what this does is mounts the stitches differently, so when you come back on the other side, they're mounted an opposite direction, which I will show you when we come back around. Okay. So the purls on this side are going to be the same because those were knit stitches on the other side. So I'm just going to put my needle through, flick it through, now when I come to these knit stitches, typically the front of this stitch would be on this side and I would go like this, but if I do that, my stitch will be twisted. So you need to knit through the back loop on that stitch that you purled on the other side, and that's the biggest difference with the combination method of knitting. So you really have to pay attention to the way your stitches are mounted.
Variegated one, the color break would give you enough, you could do.
Now I'll show you on this last row here one more time.
This looks like they're solid colors.
So because I purled that stitch on the last row, the stitch is mounted in the opposite direction, so I'm going to knit through the back loop and bring it through. And this was a knit stitch on the opposite row, so it's mounted in the same direction as any other stitch would normally be. But when you purl, you put your needle through and you flick it like this. So your yarn is in the front, your needle goes in, and you grab it and flick it. And that's it. That's the combination style of knitting. I'm going through the back loop in these because I purled them on the other side. And that's it. There you go.